What's up guys, it's Basil. I just wanted to make this simple introduction to Pokemon battling since I've been seeing a lot more people get into competitive with the release of Pokemon Champions. Since it's being added to mobile soon, I'm assuming more people are going to be jumping into competitive for the first time. So I thought this would be a good starting point for any beginners. I made this presentation to help get my girlfriend and some friends into battling, so if there's anything you think I'm missing, let me know in the comments section down below and I might make a follow-up. So with that, let's get right into it. The most important thing you need to know when getting into Pokemon are the 6 main base stats. HP is how much health the Pokemon has, attack is how much damage their physical attacks will do, defense is how well a Pokemon can resist physical attacks, special attack is how much damage their special attacks can do, special defense is how well a Pokemon can resist special attacks, and speed is how quickly a Pokemon gets to act in battle. Understanding a Pokemon's strengths is crucial for team building and knowing how you're going to build that specific Pokemon. These are the base stats of 2 different Pokemon. We can see the Pokemon on the left has a much lower base stat total. The Pokemon on the right is obviously going to be used more in competitive play because of its better stat spread. But just because it has a higher base stat total doesn't mean it does everything better. If you look at the speed stats, if the Pokemon on the left and the Pokemon on the right are at the same level with the same EV spreads, which we'll talk about later, the Pokemon on the left would actually outspeed the Pokemon on the right, meaning it gets to go first. Will it actually be able to do anything with that speed? No. But it is important to look at each individual stat rather than just the base stat totals to figure out everyone on your team's strengths. Just for reference, the Pokemon on the left is Magikarp, one of the weakest Pokemon, and the Pokemon on the right is Sylveon. These are some of the base stats of popular Pokemon in early Champions formats, specifically ones that my girlfriend was using on her team. It's important to look at whether your Pokemon is a physical attacker or a special attacker, if it's bulky or speedy, or that it's covering a weakness in your team. Pokemon Champions has also brought back the Mega Evolution gimmick, which adds 100 base stats to a Pokemon when it Mega Evolves. Sometimes this is just added directly to their stats, but other cases like Mega Garchomp, some of the stats are redistributed, like how the speed stat drops from 102 to 92, but its attack goes from 130 to 170. When training your Pokemon for battle, it is important to understand EVs. EV stands for effort value. These are bonus points that can be put into specific stats that make Pokemon go beyond their base stats. So for example, 2 Sylveons at the same level will have the same stats, but if one has more EVs in their speed stat, they'll actually outspeed the other Sylveon. A Pokemon can have a total of 508 EVs, but can only have a max of 252 in one stat. When someone says their Pokemon is fully trained, that means all 508 of their EVs are in use. At level 100, which for the sake of Pokemon Champions, all Pokemon are at level 100, 252 EVs in one stat will add 63 to that stat. At the bottom of the screen, you can see a training screen from Pokemon Showdown. I'm using Sylveon as the example here. So with 0 EVs in each stat, you can see the base stat totals on the left and the actual stat totals on the far right. Now I'm going to fully train Sylveon's special attack and special defense so we can see the difference in those stat totals. With 252 added to their special attack and special defense, you can see the stat total increases by 63 each. Their special attack jumped from 256 to 319. Trying different EV spreads is a really fun way to make each of your team members unique and push them beyond their expected niches. Another important factor when training your Pokemon is their nature. There are 25 total natures a Pokemon can have. 5 natures have no effect, which are usually called neutral natures, but the other 20 raise and lower one stat by 10%. 4 of the most common that you'll see are Adamant, Jolly, Modest, and Timid. Adamant is frequently used on physical attackers because it raises physical attack while lowering the unused special attack. This nature chart shows all of the natures and which stat it raises and lowers. But in modern games like Champions, they have a display in-game that shows how the nature affects the Pokemon stats without having to look it up every time. Pokemon types are the fundamental building blocks of how Pokemon battling works. Each Pokemon can have either 1 or 2 types. Also, every move has a type. When a Pokemon uses a move that is the same type as the Pokemon, it gets a 50% bonus to its damage. This is known as the same type attack bonus, also known as stab. Each type has its own weaknesses, resistances, and sometimes immunities. Knowing these type interactions are crucial for decision making in battle. Having a team with diverse typings helps prevent one type from just sweeping your entire team. Another important line of defense are coverage moves. Coverage moves are moves that a Pokemon has to hit a type that they're weak to for super effective damage. For example, fighting types will often run a rock type move to cover their flying type weaknesses. The most well-known type interaction is the Fire, Water, Grass core. Anyone that has played any mainline Pokemon game knows that when you start your journey, you're given either a water type, a fire type, or a grass type. Each one of these types hits another for super effective damage, meaning it does twice the amount of damage it would to a neutral type. But they also resist one of the other types, also known as not very effective. Not very effective moves will do 1/2 the amount of damage they would to a neutral type. Since Pokemon can have more than one type, their weaknesses and their resistances compound with each other. For example, a Bug and Steel type Pokemon like Scizor would take 4 times the amount of damage from a Fire type move, since both Bug and Steel are weak to Fire. The reverse is also possible. When a Poison and Flying type Pokemon like Crobat is hit with a Grass type move, it only takes 1/4 of the total damage. Also, some types have immunities. This means they take 0 damage from an attack of that type. The most well-known one is that Ghosts cannot be hit by normal type moves, and normal types cannot be hit by Ghost type moves. This is the type chart. If you haven't been playing Pokemon for years, this may look a little complicated to you, but after playing for a bit, you should start to pick up which types are good against other types. But I know plenty of people who are diehard Pokemon fans that still have to go back to this chart every once in a while just to make sure they remember random interactions, like how ice types are not very effective against water types. Move selection is also very important and varies from Pokemon to Pokemon. There are 3 types of moves: physical attacks, special attacks, and status moves. Physical attacks are usually contact moves that deal physical damage. Special attacks are magical attacks that deal special damage. Status moves are moves that either inflict statuses, raise or lower stats, or do lots of other non-damaging things in battle. Some moves have secondary effects that make them more useful. All moves have a type, base power, accuracy, and PP, which stands for power points. This is how many times you can use a move before you have to heal that Pokemon. In Champions, all Pokemon are fully healed after each battle, and accuracy is how likely that move is to land. As an example, I have a screenshot from Scarlet and Violet of the move Thunder Fang. We can see that Thunder Fang is a physical electric type move. It has a base power of 65, an accuracy of 95, and 15 PP. Reading the description, we can see this move may also make a target flinch or leave it with paralysis. We'll cover what that means when we get to statuses. Pokemon has a very complicated damage equation. It's not necessary to memorize. There are plenty of online tools that help you calculate damage. The most important thing to know, though, is this part right here. Every time a move is used, it has a range of damage between 85 and 100% of its total damage. So each time you use a move, it has a chance to do a slightly different amount of damage. This is usually felt the most when you're attacking a Pokemon and you do half of its total health, so you're expecting the next hit to knock it out, but unfortunately you get a low roll, leaving it with just a sliver of HP. High roll and low roll are the most common terms when talking about the maximum and minimum amount of damage a move can do. Protect is the move that all of competitive battling centers around. It completely protects your Pokemon against all moves for the turn that it's used. This move is especially useful in double battles and goes into a lot of the mind games when figuring out which Pokemon your opponent is targeting and what move they're going to use. The major drawback of this move is when it's used consecutively, the chance is cut by 1/3 every time. So the first turn, you have a 100% chance of it working. If you use it again the next turn, it only has a 33% chance of it working. This prevents people from just spamming the move throughout the whole battle. There are many types of statuses with different effects. Burn, paralysis, sleep, confusion, poison, badly poisoned, frozen, flinched, and drowsy are the main ones I could think of. Burn inflicts 1/8 HP of damage at the end of each turn and cuts the Pokemon's physical attack stat in half. Paralysis is a 25% chance each turn that your Pokemon will not move and halves your speed stat. Sleep means that your Pokemon cannot move until it wakes up. Poison inflicts 1/8 damage at the end of each turn, while Badly Poison inflicts 1/16 HP on the first turn and doubles each turn after, going from 1/16 to 1/8 to 1/4 to 1/2 until the Pokemon is either healed or faints. Confusion means that for 1 to 4 turns, the Pokemon has a 1 in 3 chance of hurting itself instead of the target. Frozen means the Pokemon is unable to act until they thaw out, which has a 20% chance of happening each turn, or until you use a Fire-type move. Flinched means the Pokemon cannot act during its turn, and drowsy means the Pokemon will fall asleep the next turn unless it is switched out. Drowsy and confused are the only statuses on this list that will be removed when the Pokemon is switched out. Priority is an extremely important piece of the Pokemon battling puzzle. Normally, the Pokemon with the higher speed stat will move first, but some moves and abilities can make the slower Pokemon act before the faster ones. Most moves don't have priority, but moves like Quick Attack, Shadow Sneak, and Baby Doll Eyes have a +1 priority. Extreme Speed has a +2 priority, so it would move before a +1 priority move. The ability Prankster gives all of the user's status moves a +1 priority. The moves Sucker Punch and Thunderclap have a +1 priority, but only when the targeted Pokemon is using an attacking move, and will completely fail if the Pokemon is not using an attacking move. Other moves have special interactions. For example, Grassy Glide has priority, but only when grassy terrain is set up. We'll talk more about abilities and terrain later on the presentation. Understanding a move's targeting is important when selecting different moves. A Pokemon move can hit one or both of the enemies, your teammate, just yourself, your teammate and yourself, or everyone on the field. The most common example of a move hitting everyone on the field is Earthquake, a 100 base power ground type move that is extremely useful for hitting both opponents, but also hits your teammate in a double battle. Some people may be asking, why would I use a move that hits myself or my teammate? These are usually status boosting moves or healing moves, like Tailwind. Tailwind is a really strong move that boosts your team's speed for 5 turns. Items add another level to creating unique teams. Each Pokemon can hold only one item at a time. Items range from type boosting trinkets to berries to stat boosting accessories. Every Pokemon can and should hold an item that benefits them. There are some moves that affect items like Trick, which switches items with an opponent, Thief, which steals an opponent's item, Pluck, which steals an opponent's berry, and many others. It's important to read each item's effects to properly pair them with your Mon. Berries have specific conditions that must be met to have your Pokemon consume them during battle. Some of the most popular items are the choice items. The choice Scarf, which boosts your speed, the choice Specs, which boosts your special attack, and the choice Band, which boosts your physical attack. Each boosts a different stat at the cost of being locked into one of your Pokemon's moves. Other popular items include Leftovers, which heal 10% of your Pokemon's HP at the end of each turn, the Shell Bell, which heals your Pokemon for a small percentage of damage done, the Rocky Helmet, which damages attackers for 10% of their HP, the Focus Sash, which allows a Pokemon to live one-hit KOs with 1 HP remaining, the Life Orb, which boosts the powers of moves, but takes 10% of HP per attack, the Assault Vest, which boosts a Pokemon's special defense, but prevents the user from using any status moves, and the Eviolite, which boosts an unevolved Pokemon's defense and special defense by 50%. These are some of the most commonly used items, but it's important to find items that specifically benefit the Pokemon on your team. There are 4 main types of berries: HP recovery, status curing, damage reduction, and stat boosting. HP recovery berries heal your Pokemon when they get to low enough health. For example, citrus berries heal 25% of the total HP when their holder reaches 50% of their HP. Status recovery berries cure the holder of a status when it is afflicted by it. For example, Pecha berries cure poison as soon as the holder is afflicted by it. Damage reduction berries halve the amount of damage taken by moves of a specific type. For example, Shuca berries reduce the power of ground type attacks. And stat boosting berries boost 1 stat when the holder's HP is at or below 25%. The Lychee berry will increase the holder's attack by 1 stage at 25% of their total HP. There are so many different types of items to use in Pokemon. There are boosting items that boost moves of a specific type, like Metal Coat boosts steel type moves, and Mystic Water boosts water type moves. Type gems significantly boost one move of a specific type before they're consumed. A flying gem, for example, will boost one flying type move and then get used up. There are so many useful items that I couldn't fit them all into just a few slides, so make sure to read the effects of any new item you encounter on your journey. A Pokemon's stats can be raised or lowered by abilities, moves, and berries. A stat can be raised or lowered up to 6 times in each specific stat. Each stat change is usually given a numerical value like +1 or +2 for buffs and -1 or -2 for drops. A move like Swords Dance will raise the user's attack by 2 stages, or +2, while the ability Intimidate will lower the opponent's attack by 1 stage, or -1. Stat buffs go up by 50% each time, and stat drops go down by an equal percentage each time. Stat raises and drops are removed when the Pokemon is switched out, unless the Pokemon uses the move Baton Pass, which will switch them out and pass their stat changes to the incoming Pokemon. A Pokemon's ability is a hidden trait that can have effects on damage output, weather, stat boosts or nerfs, type effectiveness, and many, many, many more things, even its appearance. Shout out Zoroark. Finding a good ability that either benefits the Pokemon or the whole team is crucial in team building. For instance, I run a Sun team where my Mega Charizard has the ability Drought that sets up the sun. My other Pokemon, Venusaur, has the ability Chlorophyll, which doubles its speed in the sun, so they both benefit from Charizard's Drought. One of the most commonly used abilities is Intimidate. Intimidate lowers the opponent Pokemon's attack stat by 1 stage. This benefits the whole team by ensuring they can resist physical attacks a little bit better. There are 4 types of weather in Pokemon. Rain increases the power of water moves and decreases the power of fire moves. Sun increases the power of fire moves and decreases the power of water moves. Sandstorm boosts the special defense of Rock-type Pokemon, and at the end of each turn, any Pokemon that isn't Rock, Steel, or Ground-type will take a little bit of damage. Snow boosts Ice-type Pokemon's defense. Some moves and abilities can interact with weather, like the move Solar Beam is normally a 2-turn move, which charges up in the first turn and fires in the second turn. But in the Sun, it is able to charge and fire in just 1 turn. Similar to weather, there are also different terrains in Pokemon. Electric terrain prevents Pokemon on the ground from falling asleep and also boosts the power of electric-type moves. Psychic terrain prevents Pokemon on the ground from being hit by priority moves, and also boosts the power of Psychic-type moves. Grassy terrain restores a little HP of Pokemon on the ground at the end of each turn, and also boosts the power of grass moves. It also nerfs some ground-type moves. Misty terrain prevents Pokemon on the ground from getting any status conditions, and also halves the amount of damage from Dragon-type moves. And in my opinion, the most interesting terrain, Trick Room, reverses the speed order of all Pokemon for 5 turns. Trick Room is a really interesting strategy because it allows Pokemon that are normally too slow to be effective in competitive battling to outspeed the normally speedy sweepers that run competitive formats. The most important thing to do is to use your resources. Most modern games have type effectiveness indicators when you're selecting a move. Also, the Champions training screen has all your EVs, natures, move descriptions, and ability descriptions right there for you to check. There are lots of great starter teams that help you jump into competitive battling, but it's also way more fun to come up with your own teams and your own strategies. I'll hopefully be making another video on a more in-depth team building, but for now, try out Pokemon that interest you, find counters to the meta, and don't be afraid to try and make your favorites work. My name is Basil, and thank you for watching.